Yeah, so if Karen shows up, she can give her announcements and we'll uh, see what she has to say. But so now we're getting into cube decisions, into some really meaty stuff. And what I'm going to go over today is long races. Next time we'll go over. Oh, there's Karen.
Hi there.
Hi. So Karen, did you have any announcements you wanted to make? Hi, Jacob.
No, this week is Atlanta, so we're not doing any tournaments. We will play at Duffy's in North Miami Beach on Saturday, May 21 at 11 a.m. So those of you in the local area, I hope you'll join us. We're continuing to do Monday night chouettes at Duffy's. We had 11 people Monday night, so broke into several different chouettes at different levels. So we've got that. And then in terms of Boca, we'll be back there on Saturday, June 4th. And then on Sunday, June 5th, we'll have an online tournament. So that's immediately what's coming up with online and live play for sunny Florida. With that, turn it over to you, Gary.
Okay, so as I was saying, we're getting into some of the meaty stuff in terms of cube action, and today we'll go over long races, and we'll go over what I consider to be the most precise tool in backgammon that I've seen. And by precise, I mean that it is very, very accurate. It's relatively easy. The technique I'll show you is relatively easy to use, and everyone should know it. Now, Chris Bray doesn't go over the exact method I'm teaching in his book. He starts out with a few ideas, so let me introduce those, and I think they're useful. Useful in races and basically cubing and other sorts of cubing. So the idea is that there's what's called a doubling window, and it's down here. Let me see if I can highlight it or annotate it. Racer. So this is the doubling window, and the pip counts goes here. So there's something called the point of last take, and that's, oh, I see, we can't do that. And that's, so I guess, oh, it disappeared. This is a temporary pen I have. Oh, that's the vanishing pen. Let me see if I can get the non-vanishing pen. No, I can't get the non-vanishing pen. Oh, here we go. Oops. Okay, so well, I don't know if that makes it clear or not. In any case, imagine that you're a race, and so you're going to count, give your pip count and your opponent's pip count. So you're only going to double if you're ahead, obviously. And so there's a very short, small range at which you should double. And at the beginning of the range, you call it the doubling window opens. And 3 pips later is when what's called the point of last take, and that's when the doubling window closes. So if your opponent is beyond that point, your opponent should drop, or if you're the one being doubled, then you would drop. And if your opponent is before the doubling window opens, then you shouldn't double yet. And if you're somewhere in between, then you should double and a take. So, and that's a very narrow range. That's, it's a 3 pip range. So, you know, the question is, well, how do you count that, or how do you determine that? So also, I would say, without, I don't want to explain too much, but there's the redouble window is 1 pip later. So I won't go into that, but at this point, but just remember that if you're redoubling, the range is 2 pips instead of 3. Okay, so how do we determine, you know, the doubling window in a racing game? So let's see, let's get out of that. There are a couple of methods, and I'll go over 2 of them, but I'm now only going to teach one of them, because one is much simpler than the others. Erase that. So one is called the Keith count, and let me just show in XG does a number of formulas, called racing formulas, and there are a number of them here. The Keith count is the one that I'm most familiar with and that I have used. I don't use it anymore, and I'll explain why, but it's here. And if you want to go into XG and it will show you the calculation, I will give you an explanation of the calculation, although we're not going to go over it. But there are a bunch of others too. There's something called the Thorpe count. Walter Trice came up with one. So they're here if you want to go over it. And if you wanted to study, I found well, again, there's the Keith count method and something called the Keith count adjustments. So I don't use the Keith count method, but I do use the Keith count adjustments. So I'll go over the method in a minute. And it is, it's called the rule of 62. And the rule of 62 applies, and what we're going to go over is long races. So races in which our pip count is 62 or higher. There's another formula for if the race count is 62 or lower, and we'll go over that next time. It's a little more complicated, but basically the rule of 62 gives you a doubling window of 10% of the pip count plus 2 pips, as that's the point of last take, and the doubling window opens at 10% of your pip count minus 1 pip. So that's 3 pips a range. That's the 3 pip range. So yeah, that's it. That's pretty simple. The math is really easy. I mean, you do have to do the pip count, and you do have to do adjustments, but this is about as easy as it gets in terms of the range. And I found it very accurate. Now I did, and this document I will put into the Google Drive with all the other documents in the spreadsheet, so that anyone who wants to look at it. I give a written explanation of the rule of 62. I've also given a written explanation of the Keith count methodology, if you want to go over that. But the methodology is also in XG. So let's look at the rule of 62 for the long race. So, and here we have an example of, one other thing I did. I was curious as to, there's the Keith count method in the rule of 62. And so I was interested in what difference they come up with. And if you look, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but if you look at all these, most of them are identical for the long races. And there are a few that are slightly different. Here we've got one, if your count is 83, the point of last take is 92 with the Keith count and 93 for the rule of 62. So far, all the ones that I've tested here, the rule of 62 is slightly more accurate, but they're not, if they're different at all, it's usually off by 1 pip. Now, when we get down to the shorter races, the rule of 62 for shorter races is a little bit different than either, and sometimes they're off by two or more pips. And so these tend to be much more accurate for the short races, which is why we use that one. But anyways, this is here. Any of that wants to go in and verify this stuff is welcome to. And I'd like to, if they can find something, let me know. But so far, all the ones that I've tested, the rule of 62 is slightly more accurate. But all of them, come within a pip or two of giving you the right, the right number, the right point at which you double and take and that sort of thing. Okay, so let's apply this to this situation. So let me put the formula back ahead again. This is the easiest one to remember. So the point of last take is 10% plus 2. The doubling window is 10% minus 1. That's pretty easy. How do we apply that? Okay, we look at the board. We are yellow here on the bottom. Our race is 74, and our opponent is at 83. So is that a double? Well, when we think of this, we should always be thinking of, okay, is it a double? And if it is a double, is it take or is it pass? So we're looking for really 3 things: double, no double, double take, double pass. Those are kind of your 3 options here. So given the rule, what can you apply it? Generally, if you're practicing this, I found it better to write it down on a piece of paper until you can do it in your head. You can't do it. You can't, if you're in a tournament, you can't write it down. But I found the best way to practice it.
Can you step through the math for us?
Yes. Yeah. So the rule, remember the rule is 10%. 10% plus 2 is the point of last take. So what does that mean? We're at 74 pips. Okay, so 10% is 7. When we say 10%, we're not rounding up or down. We're just truncating really. So 74, 10% is 7. Plus 2 is going to be 9. So we're going to take 74 plus 9, which will be 83. And that's the point of last take. Okay, does that make sense?
So white can double, black can take, but if they were another pip behind, they couldn't take.
That's right, or shouldn't. Yeah, so yeah, 74, that's exactly right. 74, the point of last take then is 10% plus 2, which is 7 plus 2 is 9. Add to 74 gives you 83. Black is exactly at 83, and it's a double and a take. Now, if we move 1 pip back, this should be a double and a pass, which it is. So you can see, I mean, this is, extremely accurate. And they're not always, it's not always this precise, but I've never really seen it off by more than a pip or 2. Now, so that's the point of last take is right at 83, and this is a double and a take. If we wanted to know whether we should double it or not, it's 10% minus 1. So we would say 74 is our count, 10% is 7, minus 1 is 6. Then the doubling window opens at 80. So let's move black up to 80. And let's see if this is a double. And it's a double and a take. And if we moved it up to 79, it's too early to double. Although this one is right on the cusp. So the formula would tell you not to double this. let's see if it's up on plus plus, it's double. But it's right, it's right on the cusp. So again, that's really accurate. It's within, in this case, like half a pip. And you don't get much more accurate than that in terms of any analytical tool in backgammon, at least not that I've seen. Okay, so that's the basic rule. The only way to do this, to get this, is to practice it but once you do it, it's fairly easy. I mean, 10% is as easy a math as you're going to get, and then adjusting, +2 for the point of last take and -1 is also pretty easy. However, which takes us to the next step. Not all races are equal. So, and the pip count does not necessarily represent the proper reference in all cases. So what do I mean by that? Sometimes your distribution is not so great. So the distribution is pretty good. It's pretty even all the way across, but that's not always the case. So let me choose one that's. This is not really what I wanted to look at first. And I wanted to.
Gary, one question.
Yeah.
If my pip count is 76 or 79, do I still work on 7 or do I work on 8?
Don't round. You work, if it's 79, it's still 7. 7
okay.
+2. Okay. At least that's the rule that we use. So let me try one of these. Okay, yeah, so here's a good example of a case where, for whatever reason, the distribution is not so great, particularly for black. Even white has some problems with the stacks here. So the question is, well, how do we adjust for this distribution, these distributional problems? And so that's where the Keith count methodology comes in. Up, here we are. And this is a little bit trickier. It's not hard to understand, but you do have to have practiced it a number of times to get it. So here's the Keith count. I'll highlight that. I should highlight the Keith count adjustments. So what type of distributional problems do we need to worry about? Well, here's the adjustment the Keith count is used. So you're going to, and from now on, instead of talking about the pip count, we're going to be talking about the Keith count. And the Keith count is the adjusted pip count. So you're going to start with your pip count, and then you're going to add sort of penalties for problems with the distribution of the checkers. So, and the adjustments are listed here. So for if you have more than one checker on the ace point, there's a 2 pip adjustment for every checker more than one. So for white, there's no adjustment. There's no checkers there. For black, we've got 4 checkers on the ace point, of which the pip count would give you 4 for that. But what's going to happen is that there's going to be wastage as you bear these off, unless you roll 4 ones or double ones or something like that. And so you need so your pip count for these 4 checkers of 4 is an understatement of what the actual number of rolls and the actual value of the rolls that we need to get to take those off are. So what we're going to do is say you've got 4 checkers on the ace point. We're going to give you penalty for 2 pips for each checker more than 1. You've got 3 checkers more than 1, so the penalty is 6 pips for black in this case. Okay. If you have more than 1 checker on the 2 point, like yellow has here, we've got 3 checkers. the penalty is 1 pip for each checker more than 1 on the 2 point. So white is going to have, or yellow is going to have a penalty of 2 pips for having 3 checkers on the 2 deuce point. If you have a more than 3 checkers on the 3 point, here, white has that problem. He's got 4 checkers. There's a penalty of 1 pip for the 4th checker or more on the 3 point. And then there's also a penalty if you have an empty 4, 5, or 6 point. So here, black has an empty 5 point, and there's a 1 pip penalty for that. So, so what does that mean? Let's look at our. We're going to apply the same racing formula. Let's put it here so we can see most of it anyway. So we're going to apply, now we're going to apply the rule of 62, the 10% plus 2 for the point of last take, 10% minus 1 is where the W window opens. But instead of applying that to the pip count, we're going to apply it to the Keith count. First we need to go through the Keith count methodology to determine what the Keith count is. All right, so for white here, or yellow, we've got a pip count of 64. Now we've got to go through the adjustments. 2 pips for anything more than the ace. There's no adjustment for that. 1 pip for each checker more than 1 on the 2. So there's 2 for here. So now we're up to 64. 1 for each checker more than 3 on 3. So here's another penalty point here. So we're now up to 3, we're up to 67, okay? The 4, 5, and 6 is full, so we're good there. So our Keith count is 67. So now what does that mean? We're gonna take that and apply the rule of 62 to it. So we're gonna take 67 plus 10% plus 2, and that's our point of last take. So I would take 67 plus 6 plus 2 is 75. So that's the point of last take. 75 is the point of last take. We know that 3 pips less, 72. That's when the doubling window opens. Okay, so now we compare that to black. Black starts with 66 pips, but there's 4 pip penalty. I'm sorry. There are 3 checkers more than 1 to the ace. That's a 6 pips penalty. He's at 72. The 2 point is fine. 3 point is fine. Open 5 point. That's a 1 pip penalty. He's now at 73. So black is at 73. Now we just calculated the point last take at 75. Double window opens at 72. Black is at 73. What does that mean?
Actually, is black at 74?
66 plus 6 is 72. Plus 1 more is 73.
Plus the 5 point. Another pip, 74, right?
Well, it's 66 to start, plus 6, and that's 72, plus 1 more is 73.
Oh, okay. I'm counting because the 2 point is empty. I'm giving them a 0.2.
Yeah, the empty 2 point is not a penalty on the Keith.
Okay.
Okay, so we calculated the window at 75 to 72, black's at 73. So this is a what?
Double and take.
Double and take. Excellent. Double and take. So let's give black an extra pip. Now black, instead of being at 73, is now at 72. This should be right on the cusp of the double. Still double and a take. Give black another pip. He's at 71. This is just before the doubling window open, and it's just barely a double. So this is, so the Keith count is 1 pip off here. If we move it up 1, it's still barely a double. So actually there's a 2 pip extra range. Okay, so let's, I think this was here. This was 6, 7, 73. Let's give him, this is 74. This should still be a take. This is 75. This is the point of last take. And this is a pass. So in this example, the Keith count methodology is off by about 1 pip. And you should be doubling a little bit early. And taking the point of last take is 1 sooner. And here. So again, that's pretty accurate. If you're right within 1 pip, that's pretty good. Okay, so let's do. I've got one. Got a couple more. Actually,
Gary.
Yeah.
You know, I learned the pip count, not an adjustment, but a pip count. And I've never understood the philosophy of it. And so it's easy for me to get confused. But just as you've said, there's the 2-point penalty for extras on the 1 point penalty for extras on the 2, a 1-point penalty for a gap on the 4, 5, 6. It's actually the way I was taught. You didn't get a penalty for the extra on the 3. But anyway, you did all of that and you summed it like if it's 80 is White's pip count, it's 81 with the gap on the 5. Then I was told to divide all of that by 7.
Yeah.
And I got like 11, and then add that to the 81, made it 92.
Yeah.
And then I subtracted on black. I did all the adjustments, the extra checker on the 1, the gap on the 5. But I didn't do this divide by 7 business over there. Anyway, so then I compared the total count on yellow with the total count on white. And and 3 was the tipping point.
Right. Okay. So what you're talking about is what I've called the Keith count methodology. So there, and this is what which is down here. So you're gonna first calculate the Keith count, and then you're gonna increase the Keith count by 1/7, and then you can compare that to your opponent's count, and then you're going to double the count as higher by 4 or less, and the double take or the point of last take if it's higher by 2 or more. So what you're talking about, Karen, is the Keith count methodology, and what I'm teaching is something different here. And it's called, I learned from the professor, it's called, he calls it the rule of 62. And it's the reason I use it is it's simpler and it tends to be more accurate. So instead of, dividing by 7 and coming up with, and adding that, and then your doubling window is between 4, of this number that you added 1/7 to and 2, we come up with 10% plus 2 or 10% minus 1. So what you're talking about is the Keith count methodology. If you look in the racing formulas under the Keith count, you'll see this, you'll see the formula there. But to me, dividing by 10 and adding 2 and subtracting 1 is a whole lot easier than dividing by 7 and then coming up with a range, within 4 and 2 of that number. So that's why I'm talking about this methodology. So what you're describing is the count methodology, and as I said, it comes very close to what the rule of 62 is, but it's just easier. So if you already know the keep count, and you're student, there's probably not much point to changing it. However, if you haven't learned one of these yet, the rule of 62 is a whole lot easier. 10% plus 2 to 10% minus 1. That range is I can say that and you can understand it. I can say it in 5 seconds and you can understand it. The Keith count methodology, let me bring that back up. Is you take 1/7. First of all, calculating 1/7 of whatever your Keith count was is not necessarily easy. It's certainly easy to count 10%. And then secondly, the range that you come up with after you've taken your Keith count and added 1/7 to it, to me is a lot less. This range of between 4 higher and 2 higher, it's much more difficult to the math is much more complicated. So that's why I don't use that method anymore. Anyway, does that answer your question, Karen?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So and again, you can check out if you have problems with the keep count or any of these other counts. You can do the XG race formulas, and they'll go through the calculation. But again, over the board, I want to keep it as simple as possible. It's already that methodology is probably as simple as it gets. But when you do all the adjustment count, you still run into problems at times. Okay, so let's do one more example of keep count. And see how this goes. Okay, oops, I shouldn't have given the answer. So we start with 80. And what adjustments do we need for yellow?
One for the gap on the 5.
Yeah. Oops. Anything else?
No.
Yeah, no. See if we can do this. No, I can't. Okay, so just the 1. So we're at 81. What's the doubling window for 81?
Well, 10% minus 1 is 7, and 10% plus 2 is 10. So you double if you're ahead by 7, and you can still take as long as you're not behind more than 10.
Yeah, so 10% plus 1.
I did 10% minus 1 to figure out when to double, and 10% plus 2.
Yeah, 10% plus 2 is
on
8.
The point of last take.
Is 8 and 10, so that's 91. Is equal to the point of last take. And so 10% minus 1, which would be 7, is 88.
Got it.
Writing. Call that the doubling window opens. Okay, so that's the range. What about black now? What adjustments do we need for black? Start with 86.
+1 for the 5.
1 for the 5, yeah, there's 1.
That's it, isn't it?
How about that one?
Okay. +2.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're at 3, so 89. Okay, and so that puts us right in the middle of the doubling window. And so this is going to be a double and a take. Now again, we can adjust this a little bit. Black is at 89. If we give black 2 more pips, this is now at 91. This is just barely a take here. 1 more pip. This should be a pass, or nearly a pass. Well, it's still close, so we're off by 1 pip here. And now it's a pass. So we came within 1 pip on the take side. Let's see. If we take 2 pips off, that's at 87. This should be in double, and it is. Okay. All right. So this, we'll go over the keep count adjustments when we do the short races, because they're the same. But these are something that you really have to practice. And what I would do is, go over your, if you're recording matches or you're playing on Galaxy or something like that, and consider, go over your matches when you're in races and see how it works out. And you really need to practice the methodology. And once you practice it, it becomes almost second nature, and it's really easy to apply. And you'll see, as we've seen with these examples, it's usually within a pip or 2 of the exact point at which you need to double or which you would pass. And so, which is why I say it's the most accurate methodology or most accurate tool that I've seen in backgammon. Now, there are also some kind of nuances. I don't know if I want to get into them or not, that make a difference. Like this gap here at 5 point was worth probably more than 1. On the other hand, if you have a race like this, probably coming in at some point, you're going to fill the gap on the 5 point. And so sometimes it may not be right to even penalize you for that gap there. But those are really kind of advanced applications. They usually explain the shifting of the doubling window up or down a pip or 2. But I wouldn't worry about those at this point. If you don't use this method, then and aren't using any racing method, I would use this one and practice it. It's well worth it. Races come up really frequently, and most people are just guessing, and there's really no reason to just guess. This will give you a very accurate determination. Okay, so that's the end of the lesson. Let me stop recording. Again, I'll put these in the Google Drive with the recording and the